Hi, I'm Dana. I've talked a good amount in the past about how, as a child, I engaged in a lot of media. I read a lot of books, I watched a lot of shows, I watched a lot of movies, and that was very much my little portal to the world, to how people feel, to how people interact with each other, to how people socialise, to what people do when they're on their own. All of that kind of stuff I was gaining from media. And because of that, I've talked quite a lot about how I do think that as someone who had quite neglectful parents, media and the things that I watched and read and engaged with are the things that really gave me my sort of morals and my ethics and my sense of what's right and wrong and my sense of how people are supposed to be to each other, you know? And it's one of the things that I do massively thanks because I'm autistic, you know? I turned to that because I couldn't socialise, I couldn't connect with people the way that I wanted to. And I was able to connect with the characters in the way that I wanted to and see what I wanted to see in people and the characters that I liked. I've also just recently had my mum die, as any regulars will be aware of, and that's been, honestly, it's been horrible. I've cried a lot. I've been definitely grieving and mourning, and it's been a whole thing, and it's been really tough, and especially because my dad's already dead, dealing with the whole orphan thing has been a whole thing. It hasn't been nice at all, but there's definitely been an element of relief and an element of I can be myself now properly. And I didn't realise I wasn't being. I was trying to be the most authentic version of myself, but there was still such a huge part of me that was terrified of disappointing my mother, angering my mother, her just generally finding out something that I've done to be myself and not liking it. And that's where I don't feel like my parents really raised me. You know, I think anyone who had sort of fairly neglectful parents will know the feeling of they kept me fed, they kept me in a house, you know, I wasn't being abused, but I also wasn't receiving any sort of emotional anything at all. You know, I don't remember having that many conversations with my parents about anything that mattered. And a lot of the ones I did have that mattered were ones where we were disagreeing, you know? My family were really fucking racist, and that was one of the main reasons that I cut my mum off as well. I just could not deal with every conversation eventually turning back around to some random racist bollocks that she's heard from fucking Nigel Farage, you know? And that's, obviously it hasn't always been Nigel Farage, but my family has always been very racist. And it was a massive step for me to unpack some of that and to be well, why do we not like brown people? What is going on? What is happening? And bear in mind, I was doing this as a child. This is not a recent thing. I wasn't racist 3 years ago, you know? But as a very young child, that was what they were trying to teach me. They were trying to teach me things that I don't agree with. And even though obviously as a child I was hearing that and listening to that and being oh, well, they are my parents are usually right, and I do want to fit in with my family and blah blah. And it was very much the things that I engaged with and the things that I watched that made me be no, I don't think that is right, actually. You know, I am prepared as an 11-year-old to be no, I don't think actually that we should just make weird jokes about Muslim people. I don't actually think that is a nice or right thing to do. I don't think that is okay. So from a very early age, I felt I was having to really reach out to try and find my own stuff and figure stuff out for myself, because my parents weren't helping me with it, my family weren't helping me with it. I quite often really butted heads with my family because I was just I don't agree with you. And obviously as a child, I didn't often have the words or the knowledge to know what my opinion was and what it was I did think. I just knew that I didn't agree with them. And it was always very much seen as me being the rebellious child, the rebellious teenager. I just want to disagree with people and I'll figure it out and realise they're right. And the older I get, the more I do think I was in the right, you know? I think the whole autistic sense of justice and everything's a really warped thing, and I think it's something to be very careful about because, you know, it's just what you think, you know? As much as I think it's right, it is still just what I think. So I don't want to be all my autistic sense of justice made me nice. But, you know, I just consistently saw my family being not nice and was I don't think that's how you're meant to be. That's not how I want to be. That's not how I want to treat people or have people perceive me, you know? So I feel from a very early age, I was very much looking for outside sources to figure out the things that my parents should have been helping me with. And especially as I got into my teen years, I've just literally this morning finished watching Sex Education. I've done a full rewatch, all 4 seasons. And obviously, at this point in my life, I know that television isn't the most accurate, perfect thing in the world. I understand that that's not actually, for the most part, how people are. You know, I have general logic and understanding of what people are like in the real world versus television. I understand that's fictional, but I also have watched a lot of these like cutesy little teeny bop shows that are meant to be like feel good and whatever, and the engagement that the parents have with the children is just so vastly different to anything I had with my parents, you know? Like, I had a lot of the issues and struggles that are discussed in those types of shows these days, you know, like the whole like queer thing. I self-harmed a lot, I had a lot of eating issues, I had a lot of like social and friendship issues, obviously with like the undiagnosed autism going on. Like, I really struggled from the age of like 12 to now, essentially. Like, see, that's the thing, I was definitely already struggling before the age of 12, but that's when we moved to Denmark and things like really went bad when I started self-harming and everything. So everything before that seems like it was so nice, when it actually really wasn't that great. It was just the best that I have ever had, you know? And even then, that was just me being left to my own devices and reading books and watching TV shows and not really engaging with people. But I had that whole chunk of time where I was going through, you know, a lot of issues that a lot of teenagers go through. I don't think they're things that are like secrets, you know, they might be taboo, they might not be things that you're necessarily like supposed to talk about, but if your kid is going through them, you should definitely be bringing it up. And my parents just never ever did. So like, even with the things that full grown adults have to reach out for help for, I was just left to it. I just had to figure it out on my own and deal with it and get the fuck over it and cope, you know? Like, I had a lot of issues that people have like a lot of therapy and a lot of support for and everything, and I was just left to deal with it on my own. And obviously I've not sorted it all, like not even fucking close. I still have so many fucking issues, but a lot of the really big ones I have managed to, you know, settle to a point on my own. You know, it's all very well that I can say that now and look back on it and be like, I'm proud of myself, I sorted things, but I should have had help. I should have been being raised by someone. I should have been being spoken to and given assistance and given support, you know? And I think also when I say things like that, people think that I hold like a whole bunch of anger to my parents and whatever, and I don't really feel like I do. I have a lot of trouble like figuring out what emotions are and how I'm feeling and stuff, but like, this has obviously been something that I've thought about for quite a lengthy amount of time. And as much as I am very prepared to say when things like, it wasn't okay, they should have done better, I understand the context that went into why they didn't, you know? Like, I understand why they acted the way they did and why I was left on my own the way that I was. And, you know, for the most part, there's still the odd thing, but for the most part, I understand why things went down the way they did. And yeah, I can look back and be like, well, you should have done this, this, and this. But I see why they didn't. And I'm not necessarily angry about it so much as I don't think forgiveness has to come with ignorance, you know? Like, I don't think that in order to, like, forgive them and move on, I have to act like what they did was okay, or like I'm okay with what they did, you know? Like, I feel like I can accept how it was and forgive them and not be angry about it, while still being like, it was really fucking shit though. Like, it was horrible, you should have done better, you were my parents. They should have done better. So when I moved out at 16, my family was very like, you'll be back. You know, they really Jonathan Groff me. They really thought that I was going to be back in the next like couple of weeks kind of thing. And I wasn't. I moved out. I've never moved back in with my parents or family at any point. Quite frankly, I'd be homeless before I did. Even when I was still speaking to them, I would have a better time couch surfing or something else than living with my family. Like, any of them. They're all very fucking difficult people, and quite frankly, so am I, you know? Like, I don't think they're bad people necessarily, but they are very difficult, and it would not be beneficial to my mental health and my continued existence. But even moving out at 16, which is obviously like quite young compared to a lot of people, I felt like there wasn't that much of a change, quite frankly. Like, I pretty much felt like I'd been training for it for like my entire life, you know? My mum was, through no fault of her own really, the type where I was, from the moment I was able to like walk around and do stuff, I was being trained to be someone's future wife. I was being taught how to cook and clean and bake and look after the house, and told to like, go and make sure your brothers don't need anything, go and take your brothers this and that, go and do your dad this. I was very much taught like, one day you're going to be a wife and mother, you're going to have to do all this stuff. So by the time I moved out, I was, you know, like, I was fine. I'd been doing this stuff for years for other people, and all of a sudden it was just me and my horrible partner, and I was like, yeah, like, I can have your dinner on table for you. And obviously my mental health conditions meant that I couldn't keep it up. That was the thing. you know, like my family thought that I'd be like running back and moving back in because I couldn't ever fucking keep up with anything, and I still can't. You know, like by the time I finished school, I was burnt out to absolute shit, and the entire summer my parents were like, you need to unpack your room, you need to do this, you need to do that, and I just laid in bed fucking listening to David Bowie. I didn't do fucking anything that summer because I'd been in school my entire life, and they were like, you've finished school, you're going to college. You know, it felt like I didn't ever catch any sort of fucking break, and life just keeps happening, and I understand that that's how it is for everyone, but I can't fucking deal with it. And it was also one of those things where I'd heard a lot of people talk about how much their relationship with their parents improved once they moved out and they could finally build a relationship and actually, you know, like have an emotional connection with their parents and actually be treated like a child and blah blah blah. And I really, really thought that was like likely to happen for me. But I'd moved over to like, that's the thing, I moved like 20 minutes away with my dad, like by car or train. I wasn't far away, and I saw my mum maybe 3 or 4 times she came to visit me. I came over and saw her quite a few times, like probably upwards of 10, but I only remember a handful of times that my mum came over to visit me in that flat, and the majority of them were right after my dad had died, and she was in the area anyway because that's where his house was and we were having to sort all of that, you know. And my dad came to my flat one time for dinner, and it was nice, to be fair. He bought me this plant, a small housewarming present, and the day after my mum died, so did a whole bunch of that. So we're going to just stop thinking about that because that actually like kind of really fucks with me. But yeah, so my dad only came to my flat once, and it was fucking horrible. It's like a 17, 18-year-old being like, oh, my parents like do not give a shit, you know? Like my mum will whinge and complain that I don't go to see her, but she's not putting any fucking effort in, you know? And like obviously I was caring for my dad during that time, and he was like quite unwell, so I don't really hold anything against him for that. Like, yeah, you're unwell, that's why I was coming to see you. My mum was fine. She had a car, she had money, she very easily could have come and seen me. Instead she just whinged and moaned that I didn't come and see her often enough. So I that's the thing as well, is I was a 16-year-old that had moved out with a 21-year-old man, and my parents were just like, go for it, love, good for you. And it's like, I'm sorry, like my mum had abusive relationships when she was younger. Like there were so many times that I went round to her house in the middle of the night because I was like, he's kicked me out, he told me to get out, like I don't have anywhere to go and I'm here sobbing. And she'd just be like, oh, we'll let you back, don't worry about it. You know, like my purpose in life for her was to have a man, and I'd managed that. So she was like, see, you're someone else's problem now, aren't you? And just didn't really care. So literally by the age of like 16, I felt like I'd like raised myself and was into adulthood, you know? And then at 18, my dad died, and I thought that the relationship was like going to get better and blah, 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 and it just didn't. So I very much had to like navigate that on my own and just get through shit, you know? Like so much of my life has just been getting through this thing until the next thing happens, and then I have to get through that thing, and then the next thing happens, I've got to get through that thing. It feels like it's just constantly getting through, and it very, very much feels like I had to teach myself all of the skills to be able to do so. And I feel like I'm probably doing loads of things wrong and doing loads of things that are really unhealthy and damaging, and just, you know, not doing a fucking good job of it because I didn't have anyone to teach me any sort of skill or fucking coping mechanism or just emotional stability, emotional maturity, emotional expression, you know? Like I feel like I'm someone who has always had such an investment in like art and clothes and music and stuff because I've never had any other fucking idea how to put any sort of emotional anything out there because I was never fucking taught. And I've managed to figure out a hell of a lot of stuff on my own, but I still feel so far behind. It's not even other people my age. I feel so far behind like fucking 22-year-olds half the time. You're like, I'm 27 years old and I have no job, I have no prospects, I have no husband. Like it really, like I've got fuck all going for me, you know? Because how the fuck am I meant to like work on having something going for me when I've had to work this hard on just becoming an adult and existing as a person as an adult, you know? Like it's been a fucking struggle, and you know, it's fucking tough constantly existing on the hope of it getting better. Like I regularly think back to my first counselling session when I was 12 in school, when the counsellor was like, it will get better, you know? And I'm like, it's been 15 years, bitch. When's that happening? When is it happening? Because it isn't. But there's I need better words. I'm some sort of like hopeless romantic bitch at the fucking real core of my soul. And I do have this constant hope of like, it will get better. If I just hang on, I'll have the life that's like worth living. I will not accept the life I don't deserve. But you know, like, if I just keep going, if I just try a little bit harder, if I just do it again, maybe this time it'll work out. Maybe. This video is kind of taking a bit of a turn, but I feel like, number one, I'm still massively dealing with everything, and I really want to come back and be like making videos and being productive, and I do really enjoy it, but that does also mean that like obviously I'm currently existing as a person who, like, one of the major things on my mind is the fact that my mum recently died, and I'm processing that and all of the realizations and weird things that come with it, and this is a part of that. I might do a little series. I might make this into a bit of a series and put it on a playlist of like estranged parent post their thoughts or some shit. I don't know. I really don't want to like be disrespectful towards my parents or the memory of them or whatever else, but I also absolutely despise the way that we aren't allowed to speak about people honestly once they're dead and things like that, and I really don't want to give into that and be a part of that. So I don't know, I'd love to hear your opinion about that, about anything else I talked about in this video. I just very much feel like part of being autistic for me and having the family that I did and everything was very much that I had to create myself as a person and raise myself and do it all myself. And you know, I still feel like I'm massively doing it. I still feel like I'm raising myself. I still feel like I'm constantly having to be like, you need to eat food. You feel like you need to wee right now. You should probably go to the bathroom, shouldn't you? Have you drank water recently? Like, I've always had to parent myself, and I'm having to put the extra effort as an adult into parenting myself with kindness instead of parenting myself in the way that my mum did, and it's all a lot of effort and struggle. I'm officially done with talking now for the actual video. You can follow me here, you can subscribe and like the video to help me out in the algorithm. You can follow me over on TikTok and Patreon if you would like to. I'm trying to be more active over there, but I'm just about managing to fucking post YouTube videos. This one's going to be going up late. I've got 40 minutes to edit and post this video when I'm done. Like, that's not happening. I'm also currently completely broke, so if you've ever considered donating to my Ko-fi, now is the time. I say that, but there's not actually any sort of pressure. Like, I am broke, but like, I'm broke a lot. It's all right. I'll still survive. It'll only be for like a week or two. Like, I'll be fine. But if you've ever thought about it, now would be lovely. And my Patreons clearly ain't getting early content today, but sometimes they do. So if you wanted to sign up to my Patreon for that, that would be very, very cool of you. But for now, whoever you are and wherever you are, I hope you're having a lovely morning, evening, day, afternoon, week, month, year, and I will see you again in a couple of days.